What's happening, MJ traders and investors? It's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, news, and interviews. Also home to the best MJ community. Today is Tuesday, March 12th. I hope you're doing awesome. And in this video, we're going to be discussing a topic that has really been hindering the MJ industry, both in Canada and in the US. We're going to be discussing, the problems that the Canadian companies have been having with regards to, difficult regulations and high excise taxes. Companies that have been struggling to stay afloat due to fierce competition, price wars, trying to get people to shift from the illicit market to the legal market. And a lot of that has to do with the tough regulations and inability to do traditional advertising, that type of thing. And then we're going to touch on very briefly on taxes in the US as well, right? Like how rescheduling and the removal of 280E could really help the industry. But the main focus is going to be on Canada because we do have a very important date coming up, and that's going to be April 16th. You can save this date. That is the date of the federal budget. And there's talks that we could potentially see a shift to a percentage excise tax, which would be absolutely massive. But before we get to it, I've got a video that I want to share with you, and then also several articles to prove this point home and really hit this point home. But before we get to it, make sure to smash the like. It helps support me in the channel. I love each and every one of you who supported me along the way. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff, and you'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. You can also follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be hanging out there a lot more lately, and really do appreciate all of the followers that have followed me recently. And as always, this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment, informational purposes only. You should never, ever buy or sell anything based on anything that I say or anything that I write. So here's the article from CBC. Chrystia Freeland to present federal budget on April 16th. So Canadians will get a look at the country's finances when the Deputy PM tables budget next month. So Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Chrystia Freeland responds to a question during a weekly news conference on February 27th in Ottawa. So they go on. I'm not going to go through this entire article, but this was from March 4th. And like I said, there was some information that was shared in an interview here from Irwin Simon. I posted this video yesterday. If you haven't seen it, you can go over the YouTube channel, scroll down, click on videos, and it's this one here, the must-see. Tilray discusses European expansion and excise taxes in Canada. Very, very great interview, and I'm just going to play the beginning of this very, very quickly for everybody, and then we'll continue on, but it's only, I think, about 40 seconds or so. So I did want to play this with everybody, and then we'll give my thoughts and opinions.
Talking about Canada, Amber, I see with the Canadian government, with their budget coming up in April, there's lots of discussions out there that they're going to go to a percentage tax instead of a flat tax. If that happened and went to a percentage, it's probably worth $70-80 million in less taxes that Tilray would have to pay. Now, that $70-80 million is something that we would continue to invest in marketing and social media and educate the consumers of the benefits of cannabis. And I think that's what's important. Our biggest cost today within Tilray in Canada, and we're close to a $300 million cannabis business in Canada, is our taxation. As I said before, if we sell $300 million, we're paying about $150 million towards excise tax in Canada.
So that is insane to think about. They're paying, if they sell $300 million, they're paying about $150 million in excise taxes. And if it switched to a percentage, it would be an extra $70-80 million that would ultimately hit the bottom line, right? And that reminds me a lot of 280E. We know that Boris Jordan, executive chairman of Curaleaf, has said that in this video I posted, when was it? It was a long time ago, 1 year ago, December 7th, 2022. He said in an interview that he believes that if it weren't for 280E, they would already be paying a dividend to shareholders. Let that sink in for a second. They have already paid, in Trulieve and Green Thumb, I would say it's probably over $400 million now, but they've already paid around $350 to $400 million to the US government just under 280E alone, right? And eventually, if we get rescheduling to Schedule 3 over the next, we could get the announcement really any month now, but I think it's going to come sometime between now and the end of April, at least over the next few months, but for sure before the end of the year, in my opinion, and then it'll more than likely get, the 60-day comment period and then get enacted late 2024 or early 2025 is kind of what I'm thinking. But once that goes away, if we get Schedule 3, 280E goes away, just imagine when all of that money, right, that $350+ million hits their bottom line, the opportunities are endless. And like Boris Jordan said in this video, he believes that MJ businesses are going to be high cash flowing businesses. And he also said that he believes that there's going to be lots of dividend paying companies as well. So Canadian federal MJ tax revenue also outpaces beer and wine. So like this is insane, right? We know that MJ is medicine and beer, wine, alcohol, tobacco, it's all poison, right? And, beer and wine, alcohol in general is basically just a recreational, like there was, once upon a time. I don't think there's any kind of medicinal purposes for it now. Like it used to be used as like an anesthetic and things like that, but, and, kind of like if you had some sort of a cut, right, you'd use some, you'd take like some rum or whatever, vodka, but this isn't really the world that we live in anymore. And the fact that, it's outpacing beer and wine is just, it's hard to even really fathom. And then Canadian tax breaks for alcohol industry spark calls for equality from MJ businesses. So not only is poison getting tax breaks, and you have to think, like, it's been a while since the prohibition of alcohol ended, right? And the prohibition of MJ is still very much intact. So it's going to take some time, right? This isn't going to happen overnight, but, we have to really look at what HHS said in their recommendation letter, right? It was over 200 pages of, basically saying that, there's no business of it being on Schedule 1, let alone scheduled at all. It should be descheduled, in my opinion. That's ultimately where we'll go. But at the end of the day, it should be even treated better than alcohol and tobacco, in my opinion. But moving on, I wanted to remind everybody as well that producer Organogram here in Canada reported a $248 million loss and a massive excise bill. Here's the details. The Toronto-based company also reported paying a massive excise bill for the fiscal year ended September 30th to Canada's federal government, amounting to Canadian $72 million. That's just under 1/3 of Organogram's revenue for the whole year. So, like, this isn't sustainable, right? I think, something has to be done, and we're pretty much there. Like, this is pretty much a surefire thing. Like, I really don't think they can kick the can down the road any longer. There was an article about the federal government saying it was time for them to step up and start to support the MJ industry. We're now over 5 years young here in Canada. It's time, right? It's been 5 years. There'll probably be another, review. They're expecting a spring release. That's also lining up with the federal budget, right? So everything's aligning nicely. And then we could even see, Schedule 3 recommendation approved. We could see safer banking. We could see Pennsylvania, Florida on the ballot. Like, there's so many catalysts, right? Germany with their first pillar and second pillar coming up. But then not only that, like, think of Fire and Flower, right? It's not just the producers, even the retailer, one of the biggest retailers in Canada, Fire and Flower, filed for creditor protection. And then something similar with a producer recently, another producer, I think it's pronounced Bazam or BZAM, obtains creditor protection to pursue restructuring and sales process. So not just retailers, it's producers. Ogen as well I think they were a private company. But essentially they were one of the most recent companies and producers to close its doors. So it's not a good look for Canada, right? And this is a cutthroat MJ industry, like they say. And this is only going to entice and encourage the federal government to really start to support this industry. And I think the best way they can do that is with high excise tax reduction. Not that it goes away completely, but 1/3, just under 1/3 of Organogram's revenue for the full year. I mean, come on, this is a joke. And how close is the DEA to making a decision on rescheduling MJ, right? So we know that this is coming up. This is a big topic right now in the MJ industry. This is the biggest thing. Everybody always says, oh, Curaleaf isn't profitable yet. Well, guess what? If 280E goes away, they become profitable pretty much overnight, right? Because that's extra $300-400 million that hits their bottom line that isn't going. That's just under 280E tax code alone, right? So there's so much potential here in growth. It's not even funny. And then factor in all of these catalysts that could be coming down the pipeline here in the not too distant future, and that could string together, right? We could see a simultaneous rollout of some of these massive catalysts, which arguably rescheduling in the U.S. could be the biggest catalyst to date for the industry, right? And then also a news article from today. Washington is looking to scrap 37% excise tax on medical MJ. So again, this is just article after article. You see company after company, consolidation in the space. Tilray merged with Aphria and then Hexo. So essentially, you got all of the big players in Canada that are now under one umbrella and one company. There's still probably more consolidation needed in the space. I see there was another merger today. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but there's still lots of room for consolidation. And in my opinion, the US is probably going to experience this as well. But the first thing for the industry, both, north and south of the border here in North America, we need to get in touch with, some excise taxes that make sense, right? It just doesn't, this isn't sustainable. And, I think probably a lot of it is by design, right? They don't want these companies getting too big too quickly because they have to protect the incumbents. They have to get, the Altrias, the British American Tobaccos, the Consolidation brands, the pharmaceutical companies. They have to figure out a way to get positioned. And I used to work for a pharmaceutical company, and they made opioids and things like that, and actually got quite a bit of lawsuits with regards to that because they were, kind of facilitating that and playing a role in that. But it's been a few years since I worked there, but in 2018, 2019, that was all they could talk about was how do we get our feet, how do we dip our feet into the MJ industry, right? And, CBD, all of that stuff was at the forefront. And that was their major thing, was focusing on getting that Health Canada license. And that's because they got the most to lose: big alcohol, big pharma, big tobacco, right? And a lot of these regulations are to protect the incumbents so that they can get positioned and caught up. I think safer banking in the US is going to happen as well, because that's going to position the Wall Street banks, the institutions, the hedge funds, right? They're going to be able to uplist to the NYSE and the NASDAQ eventually, and then they'll start with some meaningful reform. That's why I think Schedule 3 is the most likely, because it creates that incremental approach. And then after Schedule 3, ultimately, it'll end up descheduled. And that's how it'll effectively be legalized at the federal level, in my opinion, because I just don't think Congress, I don't think the US has enough of a functional Congress to get it done. But who knows? Maybe they get it done in 3-5 years, and with the international treaties and things like that could violate with regards to descheduling. We'll see. It's going to be interesting, but there's a couple of ways to get there. None of us know for sure, but I would say the most likely scenario is we get descheduling. But let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Always love hearing from you. Always encourage thoughtful discourse as well. If you don't agree with me, great. If you agree with me, great. Prove your point. Say what you need to say, but as long as everybody's respectful, that's the main thing, right? And we can try to get to the truth. That's all I'm after, and that's all really any of us should be after. And helping our fellow retail investor is at the forefront of what I'm all about. And I'll be making videos on this industry. I'll be making videos, pretty much on a lot of different subjects. We know that we follow MJ primarily on this channel, and then crypto and stuff like that, some real estate, but I'll be making MJ videos for sure as long as I'm on this earth. And let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Do you think we're going to get some sort of news with regards to Canadian excise tax shifting to a percentage? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions as always. So we'll continue the conversation in the comment section below. It's Rob with Power Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth, and we'll see you again on the next video.